Rev Don Lewis coming to you from the beautiful metaverse, and more particularly from Danville, Illinois, and the homeland of the Correllian tradition. And welcome to Midday with Reverend Don. And I love being able to spend this time with you. I hope you're having a lovely day. And if you would like to say hello, to make a comment or ask a question, you can type it into whatever platform you're watching this program on, and it will appear in my chat room and we will interact. And otherwise, I will sit here and talk. And there are lots of things going on at the moment. Most of them are just a repetition of what I've been saying for several days, but I've been working on my Patreon. I'm looking at bringing out our first monthly newsletter for Patreon in the next few days, hopefully. I do have my birthday celebration this weekend. It will either be immediately before or immediately after the celebration. The celebration will be Sunday. My birthday is June 11th. It's my 60th birthday. Hello to Janet in the chat room. Good to see you, Janet. 60, I guess, is a big birthday. It's the diamond birthday, and it definitely means I've been here for a while. And I definitely feel that it marks a new phase in my life, although I've already entered that new phase. Being here is part of that new phase, and it brings a lot of changes. And I think there will be good changes. A greater focus on artwork and writing and teaching, and no longer a focus on administration, which I was never all that fond of. Now I can have more of an actual personal life, which is a good thing. And hello to Mary in the chat room. Good to see you, Mary. Mary was such a huge help in the move down here. Thank you, Mary. So many people were. And I'm very grateful for all of that help. I'm grateful for all of the good people in my life. I'm grateful for the lessons that life affords me. And I've certainly learned a lot in these last few months, but we never stop learning. And that is always something to be appreciated. Not always enjoyed, but always appreciated. Because, we learn through the challenges in our life. Mary says, I miss you. Oh, I miss seeing you too. But we can come together here, and it's not quite the same as being in the same town, but we are still here in the same metaverse. Within a few years, it may be barely distinguishable from being in the same room. And Mary says, I'm glad I can see you here. I'm glad to see you too, Mary. And hello to Chad Chad Blackman in the chat room. Good to see you, Chad. And hello to Kassan in the chat room. And Janet says, I'm on my way to turning 60. Congratulations, Janet. It's my attitude toward getting older, it aligns with that cliche that it's a privilege denied to many. Certainly there are aspects of growing older that are more difficult than others, but there are aspects of being younger that are more difficult than others too. Hello to Jason in the chat room. Good to see you, Jason. And hello to Renee in the chat room. Good to see you, Renee. It's so good to see all of you. I love that we can have this time together every day. And as I was talking about yesterday, I'm considering my next art project. Oh, hello to Deb in the chat room. Good to see you, Deb. And I'm debating between whether I want to do more painting or more sculpture. Previously I've done a lot of painting of commercial sculptures. And in fact, I've got a couple here that I could paint. I have one of Hades with Cerberus, which I thought might be an interesting project, but I've also been thinking maybe I'll do an original painting or maybe an original sculpture. And speaking of original sculptures, as I've been going through boxes, I found this one that you may not have seen, which is a plaque of the goddess Sekhmet. And I did this original sculpture and painting 25 years ago. Hello to Laurie in the chat room. Good to see you, Laurie. It shows the goddess Sekhmet. There was a similar artwork depicting Isis. And I thought I would share it with you. I still have the mold. She was made as a sculpture and then cast. And I had the thought that I would do a number of them, although I don't know that I will do that now. But at the time, that's what I was working on when I made this. Another interesting thing I came across, and I'm thinking of possibly putting it in the newsletter, is this article. I don't know if you can see it, but this is me many, many, many years ago. And this is from the very first psychic fair that I read at. The first, at least if my memory serves me correctly, and I'm certain that it does, because it was such a singular occurrence. The first psychic fair I actually read at was on my birthday. And it was covered by the commercial news here in Danville. And they took a photo of me, perhaps because I was the hometown psychic. I believe I was the only one who actually came from Danville. And you can see how much younger I was then. Hello to Bradley in the chat room. Good to see you, Bradley. And it was a long time ago. This is only a photocopy, of course, and it's not a particularly good one. You can see the problems with the photo. You can see my card down here that I had created and hand-drawn and pasted up. And I just thought it was very interesting to come across this. I have my gigantic glasses on, which, well, I don't know if they're that much bigger than the ones I'm wearing now, but of course it was the fashion at that time to wear very large glasses. Hello to Anna in the chat room. And you can see that then, as now, I'm wearing an open collared shirt and a jacket and a necklace. So in a way, what I've done is I've gone back a little bit more to my older style. But yes, this wasn't published on my birthday, but the photo was taken on my birthday of that year. And it was a very interesting introduction to the world of psychic fairs, and I guess a bit of an omen. And you know, I worked in psychic fairs for many, many years. My most recent psychic fair was not that long ago when we did one through CEM Broadcasting. Although I have not made it a habit to do psychic fairs for a very long time. And Chad says, I love it. My style too. Yes, absolutely. And you know, I think it does strike a nice balance. You know, I love my ties, but I've been discouraged from wearing them since my cardiac event. And you know, I'm finding that I also enjoy the necklaces. It's another way of having an artistic expression. I also been having a little fun with my monitor strap. I enjoy playing with these things, but you know, I am a visual artist. I'm looking at possibly selling some of my artwork the way that I previously was selling jewelry and statuary. And I'm curious to know if people would be interested. We were thinking perhaps some of the originals from the Tarot of Hecate. We have them all very well scanned. It's in print. The originals might be of interest to people. Hello, Vivian in the chat room. Hello to Missouri, and good to see you, Vivian. And Mary says yes. Hello to Lilith in the chat room from the Netherlands. Good to see you, Lilith. So we're looking at maybe doing that. And you know, I mean, I've made the move. I'm settling in, but you know, I have to keep my eye on income, and I also there are a lot of things that I need now that I'm here. I left most of my furniture behind. Did bring my desk, did bring my bed. That was all. My son has now gifted me with a beautiful new desk, so my old desk is now a workstation for Sir Jason, who is involved in Corellian publishing, working here at the house. Lilith says, "Thank you, Lord Donald. You look good today." Thank you, Lilith. I appreciate that. I'm feeling good today. You know, one of the things when we made this move, we moved into the record heat stroke or heat record heat streak for the area. June 1st here in Danville was the hottest June 1st they've ever recorded, and several days after. This week is much cooler, much more much more enjoyable that way. And I'm sure I feel better in part for that reason. Um, I'm relatively able to cope with heat. I know some people who certainly cope with it a lot harder than I do. Um, but obviously, I prefer more temperate days. And today, what is it today? Today is only 75 degrees, which is very pleasant. And Henry Daniel says, having my ex back has brought me great joy in my life. This is one thing that I've always wished for in my life, and I got it. Oh, you should be careful of that, because I think what this is, there's a link which I assume goes to someone who will magically get your ex back for you. Bad idea. You'll regret it later. If you broke up, you broke up for a reason. There are a few exceptions. I would not do that. I had someone who I believe did that to me once, and they regretted it for a long time. Not because I didn't care for them, but because we just were not compatible. We wanted different things, and ultimately it simply was not a happy situation. I don't recommend that. If you have an ex that you want to get back with, and it's appropriate that you do so, you won't need magic to do it. It will happen naturally, or it really should not happen, in my opinion. And I'm not quite sure what page that appeared on, but it really does not belong on any of our platforms. But I'm not really in a position to, oh, yes, I am. Dr. Bright Solution Home. No, 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 no. We'll just remove that. I've noticed there are a lot of what you might call predatory psychics who show up on Facebook. They promise things that either cannot be delivered or should not be delivered. And, they're obviously not really what you should be dealing with, in my opinion. I had someone try to contact me, I believe it was through Instagram the other day. Let me share this with you, assuming I can find it easily. I think I got rid of it, but maybe I've still got it. But I can fill it in for you oh no, there it is. Out of the blue, I welcome you to my great spell and spiritual work. I'm a well-certified spellcaster, voodoo priest, and psychic spiritual leader. And then it lists this long list of spells, including love spell to get your ex back, lottery spell, marry me spell. Or they're 99% guaranteed, and they manifest within 24 hours. So why are they doing this? If they can do that, they should be in a far better position than having to troll strangers online. Magic really does work. You can do a lot with it, but this idea that that you are 99% effective and your money spells manifest in 24 hours, but oh, please pay me $5 for a spell. These things don't go together, or probably much more than 5. So I always say be careful of that sort of thing. Now, can your spell manifest that well that quickly? Maybe it can. I've certainly had things do that. If you have studied and applied yourself, I'm sure you've had things do that too. They do. They don't always. The idea that I just say buyer beware. The better sort of person is not going to be contacting strangers to offer readings. They'll offer the reading, but you have to go to them as a general rule. And if that isn't what's happening, I just say be cautious. Now, of course, if you know someone it's a different matter. I recently had a close friend offer me a reading, and I told them to go ahead. Excuse me. I don't normally let people read for me, but I decided in this case that I would. And that's perfectly fine. I've known this person 30 years. Of course they can read for me. I know perfectly well they're coming from a good place, they're well trained, it's all good. If someone walked up to me as a stranger trying to solicit me to get a reading, I would not look particularly well upon it. That's not what professionals do. You know, one of the things we're talking about is the upcoming Psychic Academy. And one of the aspects of that is teaching professionalism in the psychic arts. These are not professional things that we're talking about. It's not how you build a reputation. It's not how you build a decent psychic career. This is what destroyed the spiritualists. Now, I've talked to a number of places about what happened to the spiritualists, and you probably know if you're in the metaphysical community. As spiritualism became more and more popular, it attracted less and less reputable people. There were still lots of great spiritualist mediums doing good work, but there were also a lot of people using sleight of hand to do false work, to give the impression that they were having physical manifestations that were really parlor tricks. Because spiritualism, particularly in the 19th century, relied heavily on physical manifestations that most psychic workers don't pursue today. Not because they're not possible, but because of this. Most people don't even want to develop those skills for fear they'll be accused of faking them, no matter how genuine they actually are. And they were used to persecute the spiritualist movement, most of whose members were completely honest and legitimate. But the fakes were so egregious that it was difficult for the real people to distance themselves. And this is something that the psychic arts also has to worry about. But I think in this case, most people know that there are people who are legitimate psychics and people who are not. And they've always been there. And I think that we just have to keep an awareness of this. So that's my little caveat for today. Be careful what you pay for. Be careful what you're going for. If you want a psychic reading, one, you can come to me and just instant message me. We can set something up. Or you can go to a psychic fair. People who are at psychic fairs have almost always been carefully vetted to make sure that they are legitimate psychics, not scam artists. I won't say the same about online and phone psychics. That's a more mixed bag, but sometimes they have been very carefully vetted. And I believe, well, as I recall, I once looked into Keen.com, which has psychic services, and they did look into the legitimacy of people working with them reasonably. So that might be something you might do, but you don't want to, and this, you know, no blanket statement is ever true, but generally speaking, if there's a neon sign outside the house, that's not the reader you want. In a small town like this, the reader may be reading from their home, but if they put out a neon sign, it's a bad sign. I won't say that a legitimate person would never do it, but most don't. And it usually does indicate someone who is not going to turn out to be a good experience. Now, I mentioned Fran Lukey the other day, and interestingly, this brings her up again. She was a spiritualist minister and practicing psychic here in Danville, Illinois, for many years. She used to be referred to in our circles as the court psychic of the High Corral family because many people consulted her. Even though she was a devout Christian, but that never was a problem. And I even on occasion went to her spiritualist church. If I remember correctly, I even presided over a service there at her request on one occasion. But she was a lovely person, did read from her home, did do some of those spiritualist physical things. For example, had my first experience with spirit trumpets in her home, um, and was absolutely as legitimate a psychic as you could ever ask to meet. But there was no neon sign hanging outside the home. Um, I don't want to say again that that always means it's a scam, but very often it will. Um, Now, I will also say that if you're looking for the psychic who's right for you, and it is good to have a connection to the person who's going to read for you, you may need to look at a few. It may not be that first person that you meet, that you find. And this is one of the good things about psychic fairs. One of the things that always used to be touted are about these psychic fairs when I was working there, particularly at D&H. They would talk about if you're looking for a psychic, if you're first getting your very first reading, a psychic fair is ideal because there are a number of different psychics right there. You can see how they feel to you. You can see how they impress you. You can even get readings with several because the cost is not extravagant at most psychic fairs. And you can find out what it's like, what they're like. You can have a psychic smorgasbord. And I still think this is one of the best aspects of a psychic fair. It gives you lots of things to choose from. And, I've talked about the different people I've known working psychic fairs and how disparate their styles and their skills could be. And for me, working at the fairs, that was one of the best parts, meeting these different people, learning the different techniques they were using, some of which in those days I had not heard of. For example, I often mention Rosemary Fletcher. Rosemary was one of the best readers I've ever known. Many of the people at J&M actually come under that heading, but Rosemary had so many different things that she could read if you asked, but one of them was palmistry cards. And what on earth is a palmistry card? That was a set of cards created showing the hand, and in each card was a different line or marking from the hand, and you read according to that. Didn't matter if it was in the actual person's hand, it was coming out of the cards. And it was a very different way to read. I'd never seen such a thing, was rather astounded that it existed, and it was one of those wonderful, unexpected things to learn about. And I've never seen a deck like it since. It was definitely not homemade, but I've never seen one like it since. There was another time that someone came into the fair with a handmade deck that apparently belonged to their great-grandmother, thinking that she had created it. Unfortunately, she had not, but she had made a really good copy of what is called what were called gypsy witch cards. And I know that term gypsy is often considered offensive today. I mention it only because that was the brand name of the cards. The original German name was Zigeuner, I believe, which might be just as offensive, I don't know. But it was a Romany reference to something that probably had nothing whatsoever to do with Romany. But it's a totally different form of card reading from either playing cards or tarot cards. This lady had hand copied in pencil the entire deck for her own use. It was very interesting. Since she was his great-grandmother then, it was probably around the turn of the last century, which would also explain why she felt it necessary to hand copy it rather than buy a copy, because it's entirely likely no copy was available to be bought in this country, and that she had had a friend who had gotten one somewhere else, or at least in the area this person lived. That was an interesting experience. Another interesting form of reading that I encountered at J&M fairs was doll reading. I never met the doll reader, never saw her do it, but it was explained to me. And she was known professionally as the doll lady. And she was an older woman. She had passed on by the time I joined the fair. But what she had was a table full of dolls. If I remember correctly, there were about 20 of them. and she would ask people to choose, I want to say the 7 that most appealed to them. Might have been 10. I'm thinking 7 at the moment. And they would choose these, and she would read them in the order in which they had chosen them, and each one had a meaning. The order had a meaning, the dolls had a meaning. And that's how she constructed her reading. And no one else did anything remotely similar. And this actually is a big draw in the psychic world. If you have something unique, people will come to you for that reason alone. But she was also a good reader from everything I've heard. But it was an absolutely unique form of reading. Some people found it very cute. Some people found it a little creepy. Whatever. But it was very effective for her purposes. Eleanor Royce, the Rolls-Royce of psychics, also known by the name Eudora, which I know from the book Psychic Chicago, which profiles her, years before I met her. Fascinating woman. And one of the things she had was a hands-free pendulum. This was a pendulum suspended from a metal arm with a plate of sand underneath to show the movement, but you did not touch the arm. I can't say I ever saw her use it, but I thought that was a very interesting thing as well. There were a lot of interesting things. Robin Locherko, also one of the best psychics I've known and one of the most versatile. Her primary thing at the fairs was reading bones. And if you're not familiar with reading bones, this is an African technique. When I was in Africa in 2013, I got to interview Dr. Malikwa, who, among other things, was a Sangoma and a bone reader, and see how it's actually done in Africa. I'd also had it done for me by one of his students. And Robin did exactly the same skill. I don't know if she'd gone to Africa to learn it, because I don't know her earlier life. But reading bones does not really involve bones, although it can. And she eventually created a set of bones that were actual bones with symbols on them. But that's not normally what this means. What it means is a collection of trinkets and other items with symbolism to you that you have people draw at random. And then you read for them according to what the meaning of those objects is for you. And that was a fascinating way of reading that at that time I had not encountered elsewhere. I always wondered whether in Africa it would be real bones. And with Dr. Malikwa, it was not. Some were, if they were unusual formations, but I guess it's just the name. Might be the origin. And, you know, the reading of bones is very ancient. And, you know, that makes sense. It's one of the earliest things people would have had available for this kind of reading. In China, they apparently had a unique oracle system where they used tortoise shell or other bone. I believe lamb bone was one of the ones they used, and fire for their readings. And the question would be inscribed on the bone, which would then be exposed to the fire, and the cracks were how you read it, if I remember correctly, which is a very interesting technique. I wouldn't, I suppose maybe I could do an intuitive version, but I have no idea how they would have done it, except obviously each crack formation had a meaning. And that's another really unusual form of reading. So there are so many different things that one can do. And hello to Ramona in the chat room. I apologize, I didn't see you earlier. And Ramona says, I want to get your third book of witchcraft, of Witch School Third Degree, and that will complete my set of your Witch School books. Wonderful. You can find that at CorellianPublishing.com. If you have difficulty finding it, message me. I will certainly point you there. Mary Hawk asks about misspelled signs. Jason says, if someone would like a reading from you, where can they book a reading? Right now, the best thing to do is to instant message me on Facebook. I'll set it up. At a later point, it will be available from CorellianPublishing.com. I probably should put it there, but I've only just started doing it. I don't have it there yet. But just, Lori says, nope, no dolls for me. But if you're interested in a reading, you can contact me directly through Facebook Messenger or by email at donlewishp@aol.com, and we can set something up. And soon there will be a button for it. And I hope that you've enjoyed today's broadcast and talking about eccentric psychic things. I'll be back tomorrow. I hope you will too. I love spending this time with you. It's a pleasant part of the day. I hope it is for you too. And you can see I've been cleaning in my office. A lot of the boxes have found their forever homes and or have been broken down for storage or recycling. So that was this morning's project. But thank you for joining me. I'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and let us close with our prayer. Divine Mother Goddess, Divine Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you for all that you do in our lives. We pray that you will continue to be with us as we go forward. Though we know you will, we hope we shall always have the awareness of your presence. Help us to remain aware of our connection to the universe and the universe connection to us as we go forward, and to enjoy the prosperity the universe provides when we allow it to do so. Beloved Mother Goddess, beloved Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you now and always. And knowing you are always with us, yet from respect, we thank you for your presence. And until next time, may you be blessed. And I thank you for your presence. I love spending this time with you. I love you all. Until next time, may you be blessed. And I will see you tomorrow. And hopefully you'll join me for the birthday celebration this weekend here at paganworld.tv.